Hey everyone, welcome back to Reissued. If you're new here, my name is Andrew. Today I thought that I would make my first Thrift With Me video of the year extra special by traveling halfway across the world. But really though, my boyfriend Matt and I went on vacation in Japan, and while I was there, I could not resist visiting a thrift store. I'm always so curious no matter where I go to see what the thrift scene is like, maybe to find some amazing finds, but mostly because I'm just curious to see what they have there. We need to know, right? And so even though I didn't plan to film anything on this trip, I did end up picking up the camera and taking you along for the ride. So we're gonna start by exploring the thrift scene in Tokyo and Kyoto, where we went, what we saw, what the vibe was like, and then we're gonna finish with a little shopping haul to show you what we actually bought. It wasn't really what I was expecting, but we still found some really great stuff. I can't wait to show you. Let's go thrifting in Japan. Now, before we get started today, if you like this video, be sure to like this video and be sure to subscribe if you want to see more Thrift With Me content. It's been a while since I've done a Thrift With Me, but I go thrifting all the time, so let me know if you want me to take you with me more. So let me just give you a quick travel recap to start. We flew into Tokyo and spent 3 full days there staying in the centrally located Shibuya area. Then, after a quick stop through Hakone National Park with spa vibes, pirate ships, and freezing cold mountains, we made our way to Kyoto. 5 days in Kyoto, and it was back to Tokyo for a day and a half before flying home. So now that you have a sense of our travel itinerary, I'm going to skip around to focus on different elements of our thrifting and shopping journey. So let's start with thrifting in Tokyo. We started our Tokyo thrifting journey in the Harajuku neighborhood, famous for its bold fashion. Even though we didn't see many people wearing much of the Lolita, kawaii, or classic Harajuku style that we were expecting, there were still so many fashionable people here. The styles were oversized and focused on bold shapes and cuts. There was so much street style inspiration, but I'm not in the habit of taking photos of random people on the street, so you'll just have to take my word for it. Early on, we saw a sign for vintage clothing, so we jumped on it. And right away, we found one of the coolest aspects of the secondhand market here with these super unique, one-of-a-kind reworked pieces. Embellished t-shirts, backpack jackets, and whatever this is. It actually reminded me a bit of the early days of my channel when I was doing reworked fashion pieces, so it felt like home.
For me.
And then we started in with the curiously familiar LL Bean, US sports t-shirts, and your basic American Goodwill fare. Don't get me wrong, there were some super cool finds, but I could find a lot of these at home, so let's move on. The next store was looking a little familiar as well. The same LL Bean jacket style, all the familiar names and brands, and some 90s sweaters. Are these cool again? Of all the stores we hit on this day, I found this one called Kinji to be the most fun. Yes, they still had that same LL Bean jacket, which is a great jacket to be fair, but it's everywhere. And they definitely had more of the same basics, but they also had some pretty fun standout pieces for pretty decent prices. This beautiful embroidered piece was around $140 US. Matt found this really cool sweater.
It's the hard thing about having beautiful limbs.
My arms aren't as long, so I bought it instead. I'm actually wearing it right now. I liked the deconstructed inside-out seam details and the fact that it was reversible, which ended up making it the MVP of this 12-day trip. I wore it so much. Plus, it was about 1,300 yen, which comes out to about $8 US. We enjoyed Kinji so much that we decided to go back a couple days later and spend more time to look, and we found a totally different location. This one had a few more unique reworked pieces that gave us some ideas for simple thrift flips, like these jeans with a little seam down the front of the legs for a permanent pleat, and this hoodie turned poncho that was kind of fun and crazy. Despite the super unique find every now and then that was priced accordingly, I found this was a great place to stock up on classic affordable basics like cable knit sweaters and denim jackets, and basics if that's what you're into. One more stop at another secondhand spot in Harajuku to satisfy my curiosity.
Ooh, yeah. All black.
Oh, very chic.
Yeah.
I did very little research before diving into this trip, so upon further research after the fact, it seems like a lot of the clothes thrifting scene here is akin to a Buffalo Exchange, Crossroads Trading, or 2nd Street Vintage, which we actually saw multiple locations of here. So the stores were very curated and clearly focused on specific design trends. And at this point, still pretty early in the trip, I was already finding myself kind of overwhelmed and oversaturated with all the options. Looking back on the footage now, I actually think a lot of these finds were really good, but at the time it was hard to keep perspective and jump on buying any one item. My turn for the 2 short sleeves.
Give me a spin. Oh, put some effort into it.
Empty-handed and haunted by that same LL Bean jacket, we concluded our thrifting journey for this leg of the trip. We picked up where we left off a bit in Kyoto with a couple shops in a covered shopping street at the start of the Nishiki Market, and it was pretty much more of the same. Maybe a few vintage pieces that would be tougher to find even in the US. And I will say that a lot of the styling felt cool and unexpected. I mean, removing the lining from a London fog jacket and wearing it by itself is kinda genius. At the end of the trip, we concluded our clothes thrifting spree by visiting the Shimokitazawa neighborhood, which is kind of the thrifting mecca in Tokyo. It was literally wall-to-wall secondhand clothing shops on nearly every block. This was kind of insane and would be super helpful if you were digging for something specific. I, again, found it a bit overwhelming. I'm used to digging through tons of ugly garbage and at Goodwill. It makes sense that the shops we visited in both Tokyo and Kyoto were pretty trend-driven and curated, given how touristy the areas we went to were. I know it would be similar in any major US city like New York or Chicago. What I was not prepared for was that these stores would be stocked with clothes shipped directly from America, rather than with Japanese styles and brands. There were kimonos and cool reworked pieces from time to time, and some stores that had unique fashion for sure.
Basic, boring, cool. Boring, basic, cool.
But overall, I felt like I could have gotten most everything I saw in any major US city, without the 14-hour flight. I mean, they even ripped off the Salvation Army's logo. Come on. So yeah, I really enjoyed this neighborhood's vibe and would definitely recommend a visit, but at this point we were kind of bored with the sameness and the basics and ready to move on. So in general, my take on the clothing thrifting scene here from the menswear perspective is that if you suddenly needed to stock up on classic quality pieces on a budget, or if you were willing and able to shell out some cash on some unique reimagined pieces, this experience would be perfect and have tons of options. I wasn't really in either place right now, so I didn't end up buying much. Now, I've mentioned in past videos how I think a lot of the best thrifting experiences happen in kind of off the beaten path places in the middle of nowhere, rather than super touristy areas that come with trends and curation and markups. So I know that after doing a little bit more research that there are some options here that are a bit more thrift store-like and less curated, further out in less touristy areas of Tokyo. That might have given me a more authentic taste of Japanese life and the treasure hunt that I so deeply crave. But since this was a vacation and not a dedicated thrifting research trip, I can only speak to what I actually ended up seeing. So we've seen a lot of clothes, but what about home decor? I obviously can't bring any furniture back with me, but what about some little secondhand pottery or artwork? Secondhand home decor doesn't appear to be as much of a thing in Japan as it is in the US, at least not in the neighborhoods that we visited, but we did find a couple spots to give us a taste of secondhand Japanese home decor. The first spot was in the thrift store Mecca that was the Shimokitazawa neighborhood. I learned later that this store is actually a chain in Tokyo with stores in various neighborhoods. Right away, I noticed that everything was in excellent condition. There were a lot of mid-century styles, and a couple more antique pieces, and a few just kind of average pieces that made this feel more like a thrift store and less like a perfect showroom, which I'm all about. And with some big old price tags to match. This piece is stunning and just over $700 US. I wish we could have visited another one of their locations to compare and contrast, but they were in some other neighborhoods that we didn't end up hitting, so not this time. But the other home decor place that we had visited a few days earlier near Nishiki Market in Kyoto was more of an antique store, with the shop workers repairing and restoring furniture pieces right in front of the store. And even though I couldn't take anything home with me and generally prefer a less curated vibe, this place was kind of my dream with this vintage industrial apothecary workshop feel. Yes, the curation of the items themselves was amazing, but the thing that really stood out to me was how many of the items were in kind of shabby condition. They functioned, but the finish wasn't perfect, and that was okay. I think American furniture restoration and thrift flip culture encourages people to lose the original intention of the piece in favor of making it feel brand new again. I mean, how many pieces have we seen with a touch of damage that need to be painted? These items felt unapologetically old and lived in, and that made them beautiful and made me feel validated. But one other element that I took away was how these old and crumbly finishes were juxtaposed against very modern or luxe elements. These chairs have the original chipping industrial paint job, but are reupholstered in a super rich matching velvet to make the wear feel beautiful and intentional rather than dingy or damaged. I'm low-key obsessed with these and I want them in my house. Even though I'm not sure this qualifies as a thrift store, I was so happy that we stumbled upon this beautiful place for a little dose of inspiration. So believe it or not, after all the secondhand clothing places we hit and those few home decor spots, the only thing that we ended up purchasing from a thrift store was this short-armed sweater. And yet we had to pick up a cheap extra suitcase to carry home everything that we bought. So that brings up the questions, what were we looking for? What did we actually end up buying? And where did we find it? Call it stereotypical, but we were looking for things that we considered uniquely Japanese. I'm not just talking about pottery and chopsticks and kimonos, although those were on the list. I'm talking about the effortlessly chic, monochromatic, oversized layers that made everyone on the streets of Shibuya and Harajuku look like a fashion model. This look feels distinctly Japanese to me. Where are they finding these clothes? And I know it seems reductive to see shopping in Japan as a quest for paper lanterns, but seriously, there are beautiful paper lanterns and light fixtures everywhere. Where could we find them? Now we enter an interesting place of what we expect to see when we go to a country based on the image they have projected or the idea that we have of them in our mind. So I'm curious here, if you're watching this video from outside the US, what would you be looking for that's uniquely American if you were to come and visit the US? I'm so curious, let me know down in the comments. So with that being said, we did find a couple of the things that we were looking for. First, we found this super cool art shop near the Nishiki Market in Kyoto that sold vintage Japanese prints. I need no more art in my life, but I do find Japanese art to be very beautiful, so I had to pick up 2 of these little 1930s woodblock prints for around $33 for both. I love the vintage feel of the yellowed paper and the strong graphic designs with just a hint of color. They had a lot of cool stuff in this shop, but it got pricey pretty quickly, so this was within my price range and felt very unique. Next, we found this amazing little paper shop off the beaten path in the Arashiyama neighborhood. We came here for the bamboo forest and for the monkeys, but ended up loving this little preserved street with several pretty shops. I was first drawn in by these beautiful printed papers that were just over $1 US each. We also picked up a roll of plain white paper for just over $3 that we can use for making lamps maybe. It might work really well for my laser cut lanterns. And finally, I got a large roll of this white paper with the natural fiber grid since I loved the subtle pattern and texture, and it was just over $5. The shop owner spoke no English, and we spoke about 3 words of Japanese, and yet she insisted on giving us a very detailed description of the making of the paper that we could only understand bits of through Google Translate.
だからあんまり使いようとないんだけど、小さくしたこれぐらい。
She was so sweet and incredibly thorough with the wrapping process, so these made it home safely. Throughout our trip, we were also on the hunt for some Japanese pottery. We definitely saw lots of handmade and one-of-a-kind pieces, but they were on the higher end of the price range, as they should be for being handmade. But we wanted multiples of the same piece in the colors and styles that kind of went with our decor at an affordable price point, so we ended up buying all of our pottery at the fish market. We went to the fish market early on in the trip and loved both the food and the pottery selection that they had there. And after visiting a bunch of different places and not seeing anything that we liked better, we ended up coming back here to the fish market on the last day of the trip to stock up. I, of course, found myself in the 50% off sales section that had these beautiful hand-painted plates. True to form, the item that I selected was the most expensive thing that we bought at just under $15 US each, but these definitely seemed the most unique and handmade, so I think it was worth it. Matt is the better cook, so he was thinking more of what to serve and how to use the dishes. So in the end, we selected a set of glazed bowls, a set of black elongated bowls, 2 long serving plates, a collection of small handmade glazed bowls in varying colors, my 4 expensive hand-painted plates, and 4 little paper crane chopstick holders. Altogether, this came to just under $150 US. Now, when we got home, Matt is pretty sure that he saw these same glazed bowls in a ramen restaurant here in Atlanta, and I did a little Google search and realized that Williams-Sonoma agrees that a set of 4 little porcelain paper crane chopstick holders is worth having. So despite our best efforts to find unique items that we couldn't find here in the US, we were foiled again. I will note that we got much better prices on these items. We spent between $5 and $8 on the chopstick holders, I think, and these are retailing at Williams-Sonoma for $40, so not too bad. In Kyoto, we got a couple of packs of beautiful incense to use and gift. Matt has been burning his and loving it and tried to order more from Kyoto online and hasn't been able to. So it turns out that this amazing quality incense is the one item that you cannot get here in America. Finally, the last item that we ended up buying were some kimonos. Now, I think the only people that I saw wearing kimonos in Japan were tourists that were getting them from one of the 8,000 kimono rental places to take pictures. I think they're such a beautiful style, and I wanted to wear one not as a costume, but as a fashion statement. Maybe in a denim blue color that would be really easy to wear. We were coming up short on something that felt wearable and affordable until we came across this random sale rack. I can always find a sale rack. They had kimonos for 3,000 yen, which is around $20 US. We wore them out of the store over our perfectly coordinated outfits. The shop ladies seemed really happy about it, and I wore mine on the plane on the way back, and I got several compliments from older Japanese people in the airport. It's just kind of funny that we Americans traveled halfway around the world to Japan to get a Japanese look, and got there and saw most of the shops filled with people trying to get an American look. I guess it's natural to crave something different from the norms and cultural expectations of your country or region, and apparently that goes both ways. But it also makes me think about what styles for clothing clothing or home decor that are embedded in the DNA of my city are being overlooked in favor of new and different and trendy, and that maybe those are worth holding on to and showing a bit more love. It was kind of surreal on our trip to see temples that were almost 1,000 years old and streets preserved from hundreds of years ago, and it was a reminder of how beautiful it is to maintain and respect our history and historic structures. It can be so easy to focus on newness and improvement, but what beauty are we losing in the process? It was also funny to see these super old structures feature design elements that have been so trendy lately. Remember the wood slat trend? Remember the Japandi thing? This was just another reminder that when looking for inspiration for a space, maybe go back to the classics that have stood the test of time. And choose what you love, because it's all gonna cycle through again eventually. Leave it to me to turn a Thrift With Me video into a reflection on cultural preservation and the problem with trends. But yeah, bottom line, we had a good time. Alright everybody, thank you so much for watching and traveling around the world with me. Stay tuned for next time where we launch into the living room makeover with the planning video. I can't wait to start that journey with you, enhancing and preserving the original character of my house, while making it look better, of course. Thanks so much for watching, I'll see you guys soon.